A blue ribbon circuit like Monza provided a blue ribbon race on Sunday as Daniel Ricciardo and Lando Norris gave McLaren its first 1-2 finish in 11 years, with the Australian driver taking victory at an action-packed Italian Grand Prix. With Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen taking each other out midway through the 53-lap race, it was left to the British constructors' drivers to take maximum points for the team at rival Ferrari's home race, while Valtteri Bottas drove from the back of the grid to finish third after Sergio Perez was dropped to fifth with a 5-second time penalty, while Charles Leclerc finished fourth to wrap up the top five. There's plenty to get into then from the action at Monza. Before we go any further, just remember to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with everything that we do here at GPFans. And of course, there's going to be plenty to discuss after this racing weekend. Here are the top headlines from the fallout from the Italian Grand Prix. Daniel Ricciardo has ended a 170 Grand Prix victory drought for McLaren, winning the Italian Grand Prix at the iconic Monza circuit after the Australian drove a near flawless drive from start to finish to take his 8th victory of his career in an action-packed race. After a fantastic start down to turn 1, nipping ahead of championship leader Max Verstappen going into that first turn, the 32-year-old was relatively untested for the majority of the race and was even able to avoid being involved in the on-track coming together of the two Drivers' Championship contenders, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen, on lap 26, before settling in to cruise to victory. Ricciardo's last Grand Prix victory came back in Monaco in 2018 when driving for Red Bull, and although he was helped a little by his former team when they botched a pit stop for Verstappen, ensuring the McLaren driver would be in prime position to lead the pack, the Aussie was beaming with delight after taking the checkered flag at the end of lap 53. "I've just been a sandbagging SOB all year, that's all," said Ricciardo after the race, rather jokingly. "I mean, thirds, fourths, fifths, you might as well just win, so that's what I did. Honestly, the August break was good just to reset. I felt better the last 3 weekends, and to not only win but to get a 1-2, it's insane. For McLaren to win is huge, but to be 1-2, this is for Team Papaya. I'm for once lost for words. I knew, to be honest, even if we got the start, it was never a guarantee we would lead the whole race, but I was just able to hold firm out in front in the first stint," added Ricciardo. "I don't think we had mega speed, but it was enough to keep Max behind, and then, I don't know. There were safety cars, there was this and that, but to lead literally from start to finish, I don't think any of us expected that. I don't know. There was something in me on Friday. I knew something good was to come. So let's just say that." Lando Norris was equally elated to bring his papaya-coloured car around in second to complete McLaren's first 1-2 finish since Canada 2010, as the young driver showed great maturity to take his second-place finish, the first of his career, stood on the second spot of the podium, resisting the temptation to try and put his teammate under pressure when the British driver felt he had an edge on track over the race leader. "Of course, you want to go for it, but I'm also here for the long term, and I'm here for the team," said Norris after his second place finish. "It could have ended up how the other two ended up. I'm just happy. I am happy finishing second, and I'm happy for Daniel in first place. I will get my chance in the future, so all good. We have had a pretty awesome weekend. I don't know, 4 years ago I joined the team, we have been working towards this, and we got a 1-2 finally, so a good step for us. I am happy for, of course, Daniel for the win, and me for P2. I'm just happy for the team." Well, it's the crash that's been coming. We can't dance around it for much longer, and we have to discuss it, because while McLaren celebrated their 1-2 performance at Monza, post-race headlines for now and probably the next week or two are going to be dominated with discussion about the incident on lap 26 that saw Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen collide at turn 2, taking both drivers, who are of course World Championship rivals, out of the race. After a number of heart-in-the-mouth moments throughout this season, of course looking at the move that Max made at turn 1 of the French Grand Prix, and the contact between Hamilton and Max at Silverstone that sent the Dutchman flying out of the race in that horrific 52G collision with the tyre barrier. It seemed like an incident that was going to take both drivers out of a Formula 1 race was just inevitable at some point. After an unusually slow pit stop for Verstappen, Mercedes hoped Hamilton could capitalise on their opponent's error when they brought in Lewis for his stop on lap 26. But as the British driver came out of the pits, delayed slightly in that pit lane during his stop, the two cars were side by side going into the first corner. With Verstappen forced wide and trying to drive up the inside of turn 2, the Red Bull car rolled over the front wheel of the Mercedes and landed on top of Hamilton in a terrifying incident that only reinforces the need for the halo on the cockpit of these cars. Both drivers thankfully walked away from the crash, with Max leaving rather abruptly from the scene of the incident, and there will be plenty of discussion about who was at fault as the stewards look over the incident after the race. "I was racing as hard as I could. I finally got past Norris," said Hamilton to Sky Sports F1 after the race. "So I was in the lead, or time-wise they told me I was in the lead, so they pitted me. The pit stop was slow, obviously lost me a couple of seconds or a second or whatever it is. I came out, saw that Daniel came past, Max was coming. I made sure I left a car's width on the outside for him. I went into turn 1 and I was ahead, and then I was ahead going into turn 2, and then all of a sudden he was on top of me." When asked about Verstappen saying to his team that Hamilton didn't give him space, and could the Dutchman have done perhaps what Lewis did at Imola when the two met and gone onto the curbs, Hamilton replied, "Absolutely, it's exactly the same scenario that happened. I went round the outside at Imola, I was in exactly the same position, but I gave way, and that's racing. He just didn't want to give way today, and he knew that when he was going into 2, that it was going to happen. He knew he was going over the curb, and he still did it." And it seems this Sunday evening that the stewards have agreed with Lewis Hamilton, with Max Verstappen handed a 3-place grid penalty for the Russian Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time for his involvement in that coming together on lap 26. So we've got a bit of time between now and the Russian Grand Prix in 2 weeks. There's a fair few questions to be discussed as we go into a slightly barren section of the calendar. Firstly, who was at fault, Lewis or Max? Let us know in the comments section below. That is a debate that is going to continue to rage on for the full 2 weeks, I'm sure. And of course, there's another collision elsewhere on the racing track as the two Haas drivers, Nikita Mazepin and Mick Schumacher, once again bumped into each other. Gunther Steiner is going to be livid at that at Haas. See, it's the same problems at both ends of the grid for some teams. I would love to know your thoughts as well on McLaren and them getting their first 1-2 in so long, and Daniel Ricciardo, such a popular driver, getting his race victory, the first since 2018. Let us know all your thoughts on that. We'll give you all our thoughts on the GPFans Stewards Room podcast later on in the week, available at all good podcasting outlets, and hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with everything that we do here on the channel.